Okay, so once you've done, all the effect shots, and like you see up here, I have them all nicely lined up. Then you can start doing the color correction. And color correction, especially when you're doing, effect shots, like these ones, for example, here, you can see color correction is makes a huge difference because a lot of times color correction is what is going to kind of help you really merge all those different layers together to really make the shots look like they're more realistic, so kind of blend all the different elements together. Because like you can see up here, this girl here has been shot on a blue screen, and the hair, I was just trying to remove the blue from the hair as much as I could, but because it was so, her hair is kind of blowing in the wind, it's all over the place, it's hard, so this is the maximum I've done. But I know that once I apply the color correction, it's gonna pretty much all blend in, you won't be able to see it. So now when it comes to the tools, there's different ways you can do it. This music video, since it's all done with special effects, every shot, it's better to just do all the color correction right there in the stage, when you're doing the special effects, because because no, you'll be able to control the, like let's say you apply the color correction and you're thinking that now you can get away a little bit more with some of the effects, inconsistencies, like let's say here the blue screen, then you can then go back and you can readjust certain settings for the effects themselves. But if you were to do a normal music video where it's mainly just regular shots, and then have maybe one or two effect shots or maybe no effect shots, then you do the color correction in your editing software. So in my case it would be Adobe Premiere. Now, in here between Adobe Premiere and Adobe After Effects, there's not much of a difference. I mean, I would say if anything, you have more control, I guess, in After Effects, because you can really, cut out certain things. You can affect only a part of the image, things like that. Anyways, what we're gonna do is once we have, here's our all effects layers, and we'll basically create a new layer. We'll go and call it get an adjustment layer, and this one's it. And then here in the effects controls, there's different tools. I'm going to first show you how I would do it using, for example, Magic Bullet Colorista. So here's Magic Bullet Colorista, and it's cool because it has things that allow you basically to do the primary color correction, you can do all your passes, and then the secondary one. And it's kind of cool because primary I would use mainly just to sort of adjust the shot if, let's say, it's not properly white balance and things like that. And then I would do my final color correction in the secondary pass. And then this way that always leaves the primary, so I can always go in and sort of tweak the original shot how it was. So anyway, so I'm going to go here to my secondary, and you have pretty much all the same tools they have in the primary. And these three circles, and that's kind of what every a color correction tool and both editing software and After Effects is going to look like. It's going to represent your shadows, it says up here, midtones, this one, and then your highlights. And with these three sort of tools, you can really sort of change the look of the shot. So now this adjustment layer, basically all that it creates is that it kind of basically says that anything below this layer is going to get affected by whatever effect that you apply to it. So now what is the place of the basic color correction? Now when you adjusting colors, I guess the most common way to do color correct shots, especially when you have people in them and you have skin tones, and unless they're playing an alien or somebody, then they have normal skin tones. Then human skin tones, doesn't matter what skin color you are, they're usually going to be warm. So you want to basically adjust, and they'll usually fall into midtones. So you usually want to adjust the midtone somewhere in your warm areas. So anywhere from like yellow, kind of reddish, to like all the way to pink. And then you're gonna offset the shadows parts of the image to the opposite direction. So add some cold colors to it, and it could be green to make it more like a matrix kind of look, or the kind of turquoise, or just blue colors here. And the reason why you do that is so that because if you just add the whole thing really warm, for example, or for that matter, if you make the whole image really cool, then it will lose any kind of contrast in it. Like it's pretty much as if having a black and white film and just adding a one sort of color tint or wash over it. So I'll start, for example, I'll play around. I'll create a few different looks for this shot just to illustrate. So I'll start pulling these here midtones into sort of a little bit warmer there, And as you can see, as I'm pulling it, everything, kind of most of the image goes towards the warmer skin tones. And let's say, I want to make this feel like a really sunny, kind of nice day. So I'll make it kind of more almost yellowish, brownish. Then with the shadows, I'm going to offset that by pulling it in the opposite direction. So let's say I'll make it a little bit, like just add a little bit blue back into those shadows there and into this, so not the whole thing looks red. So this way, as you're seeing, you have the red in the skin tones and you have the warmth there, but yet the whole image doesn't feel so washed out with red. Whereas if you take away the shadows, then you see her sweater and the shadow here in the background, everything has that red tint to it. So it's just good to offset it this way. So I'll pull it back maybe a little bit more, like there. Maybe also I'm gonna go, and I think the original image that we started with, it just looks really saturated overall, and some of the colors I don't like anyways. So I'm gonna go, that's why it's good that we here in Colorista we have the primary, and I'm gonna go to primary saturation and just drag it down, maybe desaturate it by like 25%, 27%. So there, and then here in the secondary I'm gonna keep on adding the warmth. I'm also going to add the warmth to those highlights there, like the sky there, and those little reflections on her face. So really trying to make it feel like a summer day by adding yellow. This is too much yellow, but just kind of drag it until you get the right feel for it. And then next thing I'll do is adjust the sort of the levels, so the brightness of the shot. So the way you do that is here for shadows, you can affect just the shadowy areas by pulling this line here. If you pull it up, it's going to get brighter. Down, it's going to get darker. So we'll darken some of the shadows even more. But then, because now overall the image looks too dark, so now I'll offset it by bumping up the midtones there, and I'll add even more in the highlights there, really kind of make it really punchy. And it still feels a little bit too warm in certain areas, so I'll add a bit more of this blue, just drag it down here, there. And I pull this like that. Maybe add a bit more red, let's see. Maybe in the highlights a bit more red, less yellow. Somewhere there, and adjust the midtones slightly more. Let's see if we make it more pinkish. And sometimes you can just sort of play around like this, see what you want. But overall, right now I know I'm going for this kind of a summer, more warmish look. So that's good. And add a bit more color there in the shadows, there. And it's already looking pretty cool. This is how it looked originally, and you can see now what difference the color correction does. And then also for the secondary saturation, I'm also gonna, once I did all these color corrections, I usually tend to desaturate once I do my final color correction the shots, because these shots will tend to look good on a really good computer monitor, but the second that you start playing their video on other types of screens, and different people have different qualities, TVs and stuff at home, and if they were to see this music video, let's say on some really bad TV that can't handle a lot of colors, then this would look really overly saturated, and everything would look like really harsh red, and that would be harsh kind of blue. So I find that you want to, in general, just kind of tone it down, the saturation, so it's not so in your face. And there, I think it's, you could say it's a pretty cool look that we came up with, and you consider what we started with, since this is without anything. Looks very bland. And this is the final thing, and as you can see, it hides a lot of those mistakes there in the hair too, because we overall took the whole image and we applied the same kind of color processing to it, so it kind of helps bring those elements together. So that's one look. But for example, let's say if we wanted to do more like a dramatic look, let's say this is a which is actually what I did in the final video. It's kind of a more darker video, so I'm gonna create a new, or actually no, I don't even need to create a new adjustment layer. I turn off Colorista on this one, and I'll apply another Colorista here. So Magic Bullet Colorista, and we'll take the primary primary saturation, and really sort of desaturate it, like really bring it down, maybe even up to almost 50%, so really make this image bland looking. And then our secondary, we're gonna pull the shadows first into maybe this kind of greenish almost tint, so it's somewhere there, and we'll darken it maybe. Darken it. Pull it back even more, and then, for example, add a little bit of warmth, but more in the blues, kind of more almost pinkish looking, so not the whole thing looks so greenish. There. And the highlights, I think I'll just leave neutral and white, but I'll bump them up a little bit. Maybe that's too much. Maybe a little bit less. And here, darken the shadows. Still, actually, you know what? Let me pull those midtones back, so we have a bit warmth, but not that much. And the shadows a bit more towards turquoise, and really kind of punch it in there like that. Maybe I'll bump up the midtones a bit more, so there's a bit more, you know, it's not so underexposed. And I think I'll also go to the primary first and desaturate it even more. See how that looks. Maybe like 60%, somewhere there. And let's see, let's add it. No, that's too. Yeah, let's desaturate it more, like 50 something maybe. 53 there. It's already looking pretty cool. I don't know if I like the green look. Maybe let me try adding a bit more, going more towards the bluish. Maybe the blue, like a turquoise kind of look. And yeah, starting to like this. Take the highlights, let's actually push them even more towards neutral, and bump up the highlights a bit more. Okay, there. Maybe a little bit down, and this is kind of the process. There's always going to be a bit of experimentation and trying it out. And another thing to keep in mind is that, especially when you're working on a lot of shots one after another, you'll tend to sort of start almost like after a while all the shots, and it doesn't matter how much you adjust these colors, it's all going to start looking the same to you. So what I would suggest to is just simply go and color correct your free shots, whenever your key scenes, and then leave the project for like a few hours at least, or maybe even a day. Sometimes I'll stop working on this project, and let's say if I'm working on another project at the same time, I'll do some work there, and then a day later I'll come back and then to look at it with sort of a fresh perspective, and then you can really judge whether you overdid certain things or stuff like that. So it's not something like you can just color correct it in a few minutes and think that that's it. I'll usually end up doing a few color correction passes and trying out different looks, trying out different things. So that's the kind of thing to keep in mind. Also, the secondary saturation, I'm gonna bring it down a lot more too, because I like the overall treatment now, but I don't want the shots to look that saturated. I want the video to be very kind of bland and kind of almost depressing, looking, because it is that kind of atmosphere. I'll go more towards the blues here. And as you can see, we've created a kind of nice tonal look for the whole video, but we still, doesn't mean that we completely went black and white. We still see the reds there in the lips, and the green there, and then the red on the brick, but it just overall has that feel to it. So maybe we'll punch a little bit more color back into it by decreasing the saturation. Maybe, let's see, 30%, yeah. And another cool thing that Colorista has is this pop filter, which you can just sort of adjust it, and you can make the shots really kind of punchy. Basically what it's going to do is it's going to take those sharp edges where you go from really dark or to light areas, and it's just going to sharpen those areas, not the overall image. And then the same thing if you go in the reverse direction, it's going to soften those areas for you, so it can create this kind of a smoke, screen kind of effect almost. And it's good if you have, let's say, an actor where, let's say, you want to hide their blemishes or things like that. So as you can see, this is like really overdoing it. It really softens it. And then this is the opposite. So kind of add some contrast. So maybe I will add a little bit of this pop effect, just like leave it at 11. And again, if you look at this and what we had before, it's a pretty big difference from going from this to this. It just really creates right away a completely different look. And also it has a pretty different feeling than, for example, the first color correction that we did, which was this, which is just makes the shot feel kind of like it's a nice warm day, and stuff like that. So you can see how drastically you can change the mood of your shots, and basically because of that of your video. So that's the kind of look. And then once you're happy with that, you pretty much just say we like this look. We'll go right click on it and go edit here, copy. And then you can go to any of the other shots here. For example, let's say this one. We'll create a new layer, adjustment, and then we'll just paste it, the effect. And you can see that same color correction process has been applied. And now, obviously if you're going to go from shot to shot, it's you shouldn't look at these like sort of like these presets, and then that's why I hate using presets. For example, like Magic Bullet has this other plugin called Magic Bullet Looks, and they've got some great tools there. But I would never recommend that you guys use the presets, because those presets are not, they're gonna basically work maybe for 1 or 2 shots, and that they were originally designed for. Because as you get into different shots that are differently exposed, a lot of those times those presets will just create very weird, muddy kind of colors, and it's just not going to be the kind of look that you really want to go for. So, and as you can see, creating your own look is not that hard. So it's better to start from scratch, come up with your own idea, and then really tailor it per shot. So, and here it works pretty well, that preset. Let's say we go to another scene, maybe this one, the girl with the umbrella, and let's go a bit later in the shot, and let's say we go also create a new adjustment layer, and we paste it in there. And for example, you can see here the shot, the colors are more or less what we want, but the shot doesn't look that good, and it's mainly because this shot and then the original shot that we had of the girl here, they were just much drastically different exposure. This one is very bright, and this original shot is just overall darker. So what we got to do now is see, that's when you realize that these, you can't just copy and paste a preset. You got to go in and tweak it for each shot. So I'm going to go in, and because Colorista has the primary and the secondary, you can go to the primary, and we can adjust the exposure, the density of the shot. So we'll bump up the density a bit. I'll mainly just adjust the shadowy areas of it. So put it up a bit more. Kind of decreases some of the saturation also on the shot. So there it already looks a bit better. You can even go here if you wanted to. You can take the midtones and just pull them up. I'll leave it for now, but that's the kind of adjustments you can do. And see now, it looks better than the original thing that we just pasted into it. So originally this is how the shot looks. This is how it looks with our new color correction, and as you can see, it matches this shot pretty nicely. So it creates it gives the whole music video a nice sort of look. And that's it.